The rain had not stopped for 5 days. Not heavy, but constant. A steady whisper against windows that felt more like a presence than weather. I sat at my desk, staring blankly at a half-filled chart. The clinic had been quiet all week. I should have welcomed the stillness, but it unsettled me. My father's death, a month earlier, had unraveled something inside me. I hadn't been able to dream since. Not even nightmares. Just blankness. Like my soul had unplugged. The soft blue light of my computer screen painted shadows across my hands. Hands that hadn't saved him. Hands that still smelled of antiseptic and grief. I'd been staying late at the clinic every night, taking emergency cases nobody wanted. Sleep felt like a luxury I hadn't earned. The call came at 9:47 p.m. A local shelter in the hills, desperate. The woman's voice trembled through the speaker. "She's not eating. Nothing. Not even water. We've tried everything. Please." The voice on the line cracked. "She's not dying. She's waiting." Something in those words made my skin prickle. Waiting. Not suffering. Not fighting. Waiting. "Bring her in," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "I'll be here." When they carried the dog in, my breath hitched. Not because of her condition, though she was frail, emaciated, ribs showing like piano keys beneath taut skin, but because of her stillness. She sat upright in the crate, unmoving, not cowering, just present, like something ancient waiting to be acknowledged. "Where did you find her?" I asked, unable to look away from those eyes. "Abandoned factory on Route 16, the shelter worker said, wiping rain from her jacket. Security guard called us. Said she'd been sitting in the same spot for 3 days. Wouldn't run when approached. Wouldn't take food, just watching. Her coat was jet black with streaks of gray, as if smoke had passed through her. Her eyes were cloudy, not from age, but from something else. Something internal. As if she were looking through me rather than at me. Has she shown any aggression? None. She lets us handle her. No resistance, no fear. But..." The woman hesitated, glancing at the dog, then back to me. No connection either. "It's like she's not really here." I nodded, understanding something I couldn't articulate. "I'll take it from here." After they left, I opened the crate door. The dog didn't move, didn't rush for freedom, didn't cower deeper, just watched me with those ancient eyes. "Hello," I whispered, extending my hand slowly, palm up, not reaching, just offering. "I'm Dr. Luciana Cortez." When her gaze met mine, something cold slipped down my spine. Recognition, not of me specifically, but of something. As if she'd been searching and I was... What? The destination? The gatekeeper? She didn't sniff my hand, didn't move toward or away from me, simply blinked once, slowly, deliberately, a decision made. But why did I feel like I was the one being assessed? I named her Vida. Because she shouldn't be alive, I explained to Nina, my technician, the next morning. The dog's vitals defied explanation. Severe dehydration should have set in days ago. Organ failure should have begun, yet her blood work showed minimal abnormalities. Heart rate slow but steady. Temperature slightly below normal. That's impossible, Nina said, frowning at the chart. She hasn't taken water in how long? According to the shelter, at least 7 days. Maybe longer. Nina's eyes widened as she looked through the observation window where Vida sat, perfectly still, in the center of the kennel. "What's wrong with her?" I shook my head. "I don't know. We tried everything. Fresh meat, warm broth, syringe feeding, subcutaneous fluids. Even placing an IV for hydration didn't provoke a response. She accepted the needle without resistance, but the fluids didn't seem to absorb properly. The bag emptied, but her condition remained unchanged. By the 3rd day, whispers had started among the staff. That Vida made the clock slow. That the X-ray machine glitched when scanning her. That the other dogs wouldn't bark around her cage. "Did you notice the lights?" Nina asked me on the 4th morning, her voice hushed as if sharing a secret. "They dim when you approach her with food. Every time." I had noticed, but hadn't wanted to acknowledge it. Just like I hadn't wanted to acknowledge how I kept finding myself standing outside her kennel at odd hours, watching her watch me. Or how I'd started dreaming again. Not of my father's death, but of forests I'd never seen. Of a storm with lightning that struck upward from the ground. Of a child crying in a language I didn't recognize. "It's just a faulty circuit," I said, more to convince myself than Nina. But that night, alone in the clinic, I sat cross-legged on the floor outside Vita's kennel. She mirrored my position, her thin body upright despite her weakness, her eyes fixed on mine. "What are you?" I whispered. The overhead light flickered once. "What do you want from me?" Silence. But her gaze intensified. I reached for the kennel door, my fingers trembling slightly as I unlocked it. Slowly, I opened it wide. An invitation. Vita didn't move. "You can go," I said, "if that's what you want." Still, she remained motionless, watching me, waiting. And then I understood. "Or I can come to you." I crawled into the kennel, felt the cool metal floor beneath my palms, sat facing her, our knees almost touching. Her eyes never left mine. In the silence of the empty clinic, with only the hum of monitoring equipment and the distant drip of a leaky faucet, I felt the weight of her presence. Not a dog's presence. Something else. "My father died," I said, the words escaping before I could question them. He was trying to tell me something at the end, but I couldn't understand. He kept drawing symbols, talking about messengers. Everyone said it was dementia. Vita blinked slowly. A tear, an actual tear, formed in the corner of her eye and tracked down her face. I reached out, my hand shaking. She didn't pull away. My fingertips touched the coarse fur of her cheek, and the world tilted. Sound rushed in my ears, a low hum, like voices underwater. My vision blurred, then sharpened with painful clarity. I saw a forest, a storm, lightning striking upward. My father standing in a clearing, his face illuminated by a blue light from below. "They're listening," his voice echoed. "They've always been listening." I jerked my hand away, gasping. Vita remained still, but her eyes... There was an urgency there now. A pleading. That's when I noticed it. A slight bulge beneath the fur at her neck. Not visible unless you were looking for it. Not palpable unless you touched exactly the right spot. I reached out again, steeling myself. My fingers probed gently along her neckline, and I felt it. Small, hard, foreign, not a normal implant or microchip. Something else. But what was making her refuse all sustenance? That's when she moved for the first time. Slowly, deliberately, she turned her head to expose her belly. An invitation. A request. I ran my hand along her abdomen and felt nothing normal. No give of organs, no normal tissue resilience. Just a hard, strange mass that seemed to shift under my touch. That night, I didn't go home. I sat with her until dawn, my mind racing with possibilities, each more impossible than the last. In the faint light of morning, I made my decision. Exploratory surgery? Nina's voice was high with concern, but she's too weak. She hasn't eaten in over a week now. "It's our last option," I said, preparing the anesthesia. "I need to see what's happening inside." Nina hesitated, then nodded. "I'll prep or two." As the anesthesia took hold, Vita didn't resist. She looked at me, with such depth, such finality, that I paused mid-injection. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "Forgive me." In the operating room, under the harsh lights, her black fur seemed to absorb the brightness around her. The monitor showed her heartbeat. Slow, too slow, but steady. As if keeping time to a rhythm only she could hear. The incision was clean. I opened carefully, layer by layer, Nina assisting silently at my side. And then I froze. My hands trembled. I stepped back. "Dr. Cortez?" Nina's voice seemed to come from very far away. "What is it? What's wrong?" Inside Vita's stomach cavity, there was no stomach. There was no intestine. No normal organ tissue. Instead, at the center of her torso, wrapped in fine translucent tissue that pulsed with a light of its own, lay a small spherical object. Metallic, pulsing faintly, etched with a symbol. Not a medical implant, not a tumor, but something placed, something meant to be found. "Dr. Cortez?" Nina's voice sharpened with alarm. "Your nose is bleeding." I felt it then, warm liquid tracking down my lip, but I couldn't look away from the sphere, from the symbol etched into its surface. A circle, bisected by 3 wavy lines. Exactly like the drawing my father had been obsessed with in his final days. I reached out, unable to stop myself. My gloved fingertip touched the metal sphere. It pulsed faster, and the world disappeared. My mind was flooded with sound, a low hum like voices underwater. My body jerked, overwhelmed by memories I couldn't name. A forest, a storm, a child's cry, my father's voice. No one believed me. It whispered. I saw him, my father, not as he'd been at the end, frail, confused, drawing symbols compulsively on any surface he could reach, but as he'd been before, strong, clear-eyed, standing in a laboratory I didn't recognize. They've found a way to listen, he was saying to someone off-screen, through living vessels, modified to carry data, to record, to transmit. A flash of something else, a surgical suite, not unlike mine but larger, more advanced. A row of animals, dogs mostly, in recovery cages, each with an incision similar to the one I just made in Vita. But I found a way to send a message back, my father's voice continued. One they can't intercept. One only she will understand. She. Me. I staggered back, the connection broken. Nina was at my side, her face pale with concern. What happened? You just went somewhere else for a minute. I looked down at Vita, still unconscious on the table. Still open. The sphere still pulsing faintly. Close her up, I said, my voice strange in my own ears. But what about... Leave it. Close her up. Nina stared at me, then at the impossible thing inside the dog's body. What is that? A message, I whispered. From my father. After the surgery, I moved Vita to my office. Away from the curious eyes of the staff, away from the whispers. I set up a small bed beside my desk, monitoring equipment nearby. She recovered with unnatural speed. By evening, she was sitting upright again, her eyes fixed on me as I worked. The incision was healing already, the angry red line fading to pink. What did he put inside you? I asked her when we were alone. What are you carrying? Vita blinked slowly. Then for the first time, she moved toward me. 1 step. 2. Until she stood beside my chair. She raised her head, exposing her neck. The small bump I'd felt before was more pronounced now. With trembling fingers, I examined it. A subcutaneous implant just below the skin. Standard location for a microchip, but this felt different. Larger. I took a scanner from my drawer. The kind we use to read pet microchips. When I passed it over the lump, the device emitted a high-pitched whine, then died completely. That's not normal, I murmured. Vita stared at me, expectant. Waiting. I understood then. She needed me to take it out. To see it. I should have waited. Should have called someone. But deep down, I knew this was meant for me alone. With a local anesthetic and a small scalpel, I made a tiny incision over the lump. Vita didn't flinch, didn't move, just watched me with those ancient, knowing eyes. The object slid out easily. Not a standard microchip. This was something else entirely. Rectangular, about the size of a small USB drive, but seamless. No ports, no obvious way to access whatever data it might contain, except for a small depression in one end. Shaped exactly like the symbol on the sphere in her abdomen, the symbol my father had drawn over and over. The key and the lock. I held the 2 pieces in my palm, staring at them, wondering what would happen if I put them together. That's when the clinic door chimed, announcing a visitor. After hours. Through the security feed on my computer, I saw him. A man in a dark suit, nondescript, forgettable. But something about his posture made the hair on my arms stand up. Can I help you? I asked through the intercom. Dr. Cortez? His voice was pleasant, empty of inflection. I'm from Animal Control. We received a report about a stray brought to your clinic. A black dog? Ice flooded my veins. The shelter hadn't reported Vita to Animal Control. I'd checked. I'm afraid we're closed, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You'll need to come back tomorrow during business hours. He smiled. It never reached his eyes. This is rather urgent. The animal may be carrying a contagion. We need to quarantine it immediately. Vita was on her feet now, body rigid, eyes fixed on the door. A low growl rumbled in her chest, the first sound I'd ever heard her make. I've examined the dog thoroughly, I said. There's no sign of disease. Now, please, Dr. Cortez? He cut me off, his voice suddenly hard. You don't understand the situation. That animal is property of the government. It contains classified technology. I'm authorized to retrieve it by any means necessary. He reached into his jacket. I didn't wait to see what he was retrieving. I locked down the clinic with the emergency security system. a precaution installed after a break-in last year. Metal shutters descended over doors and windows. The man's face didn't change expression. He simply stepped back, pulled out a phone, and made a call. "She's not cooperating," I heard him say through the intercom. "Proceed with contingency plan." Then he looked directly into the security camera, directly at me. "We're coming in, Dr. Cortez, and we're taking what belongs to us." I grabbed Vita, the mysterious objects, and ran to the back exit, the one that led through the storage area, the one not on the main security system. As I fumbled with the keys, I heard glass breaking at the front of the clinic. Multiple footsteps. They'd brought reinforcements. What did my father do? I whispered to Vita as we slipped into the night. What did he know? She looked back at the clinic, then at me. For the first time, she pressed against my leg, not seeking protection, offering it. The rain had started again. We ran through it, away from the lights of the city, toward the hills, toward the abandoned factory where she'd been found. I don't know why I chose that direction. It felt right, like retracing steps to find a lost object. My car was still at the clinic, my phone too. All I had were the clothes on my back, a dog that wasn't a dog, and 2 pieces of a puzzle I didn't understand. The factory loomed ahead, a hulking shadow against the night sky, broken windows like missing teeth, the chain-link fence rusty and bent, easy to slip through. Inside, the vast space echoed with the patter of rain on the metal roof. Machinery stood silent, ghostly shapes in the darkness. My shoes crunched on broken glass and debris. Vita moved with purpose now, leading me deeper into the building, to a stairwell, down into darkness. I followed, using my phone's flashlight to navigate the treacherous steps. The basement level opened into a large room, empty, except for a single metal table in the center, and on the wall, barely visible beneath years of grime and neglect, a symbol. The same symbol on the sphere. The same one my father had drawn. Vita walked to the center of the room and sat, waiting. I approached the table. It wasn't dusty like everything else. Someone had been here recently. Used this space. My father? I placed the rectangular object and the sphere on the table. They seemed to vibrate slightly, as if recognizing each other. Recognizing this place. "What am I supposed to do?" I whispered. Vita's eyes gleamed in the darkness. "Trust," they seemed to say. "Remember." I picked up the 2 objects. The rectangular one first, running my thumb over the depression shaped like the symbol. Then the sphere, feeling the matching symbol etched into its surface. They fit together perfectly. Key and lock. There was a click, a soft hum, then light, blue pulsing, emanated from where the 2 pieces joined. The wall before me seemed to ripple, like heat waves over asphalt. The symbol there glowed with the same blue light. And then, my father stood before me. Not physically. A projection. 3-dimensional, nearly solid, but composed of light. "Luciana," he said, his voice exactly as I remembered it. "If you're seeing this, then they found me, but they didn't find what I hid." He gestured, and the space around him changed, became a laboratory, the same one I'd glimpsed in my vision. "They've been experimenting for decades," he continued, "creating biological surveillance systems, living drones. They call it Project Vessel." Images flashed around him. Animals, dogs, cats, birds, with strange implants, with modified organs. They've been watching, listening, through the creatures around us. The strays no one notices, the birds no one questions. His face grew grim. I discovered it by accident. A dog brought into my lab for study. Inside, technology that shouldn't exist, that couldn't exist. But it did. The projection shifted again. My father, looking older, more like he had in his final days. They're after me now. They know I know. So I've created my own vessel, my own messenger. He smiled sadly. "She'll find you when it's safe, when you need to know. Vita." He meant Vita. "The data is all here," he continued, gesturing to the objects in my hands. "Everything I discovered, everything they've done, names, dates, locations." His image started to fade, breaking up like a bad transmission. "Trust her, Luciana. She'll protect you as she protected this message. She's more than they made her to be. She chose this. Chose to carry this burden." His eyes locked with mine, suddenly desperate. "Don't let them take her. Don't let them silence what she knows. And then he was gone. The projection vanished. The blue light faded. In its absence, I heard what I'd been too distracted to notice before. Footsteps. Voices. They'd found us. I clutched the joined devices, now warm in my palm. Vida stood, her body tense. Ready. We need to go, I whispered. Now. We ran. Through a different door. Up a different stairwell. Always just ahead of the flashlight beams and searching voices. At the top floor, rain poured through broken skylights. We were trapped. Nowhere to go but down, where they waited. Vida nudged my leg, then looked toward a collapsed section of wall. Beyond it, a fire escape. Rusted, precarious, but possible. You know a way out, I breathed, understanding blooming. You've been here before. She led, I followed. Out onto the fire escape that groaned beneath our weight. Down, the metal slick with rain. One flight, two. The ground still far below. A spotlight hit us. A voice through a megaphone. Dr. Cortez, stop where you are. I looked down at Vida. At this creature who wasn't just a dog, who carried my father's final message. Who had waited, starving herself rather than digesting the precious cargo inside her. I won't let them take you, I promised. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something new in those ancient eyes. Trust. She pressed against my leg and wagged her tail. Once. That single gesture, so normal, so dog-like, so unexpectedly hopeful, broke something open inside me. This wasn't just about secret projects or government conspiracies. This was about a connection, about trust given freely, about a promise kept. I knelt beside her, rain soaking us both, placed my hand on her head. We'll find a way. The spotlight found us again. Voices shouted. The fire escape shuddered as someone began to climb from below. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had my father's message. I had evidence of what they'd done. And I had Vida. Whatever she was, vessel, messenger, experiment, she had chosen to find me, to wait for me, to trust me. Now I would honor that trust. I pocketed the joined devices, picked her up, her body surprisingly light in my arms, and I stepped off the fire escape onto an adjacent roof. The rain continued to fall, washing away tracks, concealing our path. We moved through the night, two shadows among many, hunted but not alone. Vida hadn't just delivered a message, she'd delivered a purpose. My father's fight was now mine, and somewhere in the vast network of modified creatures, there were others like her, waiting, watching. I held her closer as we disappeared into the darkness. What are you? I whispered against her damp fur. She looked up at me, eyes reflecting the distant city lights. And in that gaze, I saw not just intelligence or awareness, I saw hope.